Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing, testing. Welcome all. The lights are so bright I can't see anyone, so it's great. I just wanted to get your attention. That's all I'm here for. Dina Lipton.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dina Lipton. I'm the president of the Art Directors Guild. And thank you. I want to welcome you to our 18th annual Oscar panel discussion with our 2025 nominated production design teams. Fabulous, amazing work. On behalf of the Art Directors Guild and the Set Decorators Society of America and America Cinematheque, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today, both here in this beautiful theater and from around the world. First, a few acknowledgements, of course. Thank you to the program's producer, Debbie Patton. Debbie. Our graphic artist, Steve Salmonen. Our technical director, Matt Ringer. And our photographer, who is working very hard back there, Vic Rancone. Thank you also to the Art Directors Council Chair, Evan Rohde, and most importantly, the members of the Art Directors Guild. Thank you. We also want to thank the participating studios, A24, Focus Features, Warner Brothers, and Universal Pictures. Also our media sponsor, Variety. And of course, thank you to History for Hire and Advanced Liquidators for this stuff. And finally, thanks to the America Cinematheque's artistic director, Grant Moninger, wherever he is, and the events managers, well, Ludke, and the Egyptians and BC Live's operations, projections, streaming, and production teams, all behind the scenes. Okay, now, please join us in welcoming today's moderators, fantastic moderators, Jan Pascal, and the founder of our Oscar panel, production designer, Thomas A. Walsh. Let's welcome Jan and Thomas. Let's go.
Hi, everyone. The films that have been recognized by the Academy for their amazing production design and set decoration this year are all so detailed that it was really difficult to narrow it down to just the few questions that we have here. Several of you are familiar faces, and it's good to see you, and we welcome all of you back. Two of the films have quite unique reimagining of tales that we've already heard before, but Nosferatu and Wicked have truly taken those down different paths. Dune Part 2 is the next chapter in a story that we've known from beloved books from the first film, but it definitely, literally covers new territory. Conclave exposes a secretive and quite mysterious process that has many twists and surprises, which sadly we may experience in the near future. The Brutalist shines a light on architectural design that was so convincing that people were Googling other works that Laszlo Toth had done, so that was quite enchanting. Our goal is to give you a peek at their process and find out what led everyone to the choices that they made, how often small things can inspire the design avenues and that make great storytelling. And it's kind of interesting, I thought this year, how we see so much brutalist influence and crosses in almost every production. So welcome, enjoy, thank you for coming, and here is Mr. Thomas Walsh.
Thank you, Jan. Good morning, welcome to all, especially our friends and colleagues around the world to whom today's panel is being streamed. This gathering is one of our most significant platforms for which we may honor, celebrate, and elevate the professions of production design and set decoration for motion pictures. Most importantly, it is our best tool for pulling away the cloak of enigma that continues to obscure our critical contributions as visual storytellers. No successful motion picture has ever been made by accident. They are designed to be exceptional, and it is our efforts that inform and realize the writer and director's narrative, elevates the performances the camera captures, and most importantly, what the audience pays for. First, some breaking news. Hot off the coconut wireless about scandals and paranoias expressed at the 1949 Academy Awards. It's really hot. Headline, 1948 award for Best Art Direction and Set Decoration for a color film. Yes, back then there were two categories, one for black and white, one for color. It goes to, oh my God, a British team, Hein Heckroth and Arthur Lawson for The Red Shoes. There was a lot of red in that movie. Headline, 1948 award for Best Art Direction and Set Decoration for a black and white film goes to a British team, Roger Kafers and Cameron Dillon for Olivier's Hamlet. Oh, no, it's getting worse. Headline, Hamlet also wins the 1948 awards for Best Costumes, oh my God, and most distressing of all, Best Picture. Good golly, Miss Molly, how could this have happened? The world and the sky is falling. The power brokers and the national film distributors were immediate and loud. How could this is a danger. This is awful. There was even a suggestion going around the town that the word American should be added to the front of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences name. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? The only truth was this was the first time that foreign-made films had ever swept both art direction categories. Of historical significance to many of the ladies here today is Hamlet was co-art directed by the film's set director and art director, Miss Cameron Dillon. And she had become the first woman to ever win an Academy Award for art direction. So I say, go Carmen. So jumping to today, this panel represents the first time that all of our nominated films for Best Production Design have been designed and made in other countries. This should come as no surprise, as many of our colleagues have been saying for some time that we're rapidly evolving into a global industry, one that is no longer dominated by North America. Well, we have arrived, and today's panel and these impressive filmmakers are a snapshot of the state of our art and its many facets. This year's 5 nominated pictures for production design are all the result of masterful imagery. The creative concepts, excellent solutions, and adept execution by their designers and their collaborators contributed immensely to the critical success of these pictures and the profits for the producers and the studios. Today's panels have been recognized by the Academy peers for their achievements. They are our ambassadors for our profession, who now share a unique privilege to represent and honor literally thousands of our craft coworkers and collaborators working around the world. Join us now in welcoming these exceptional filmmakers to the stage.
First, we have for The Brutalist, production designer Judy Becker. And set decorator Patricia Kucha.
For Dune 2, we have Patrice Vermette and Shane Vio.
For Conclave.
I already screwed. It's a live show. We're allowed to do that.
For Conclave, production designer Susie Davies. Set decoration, Cynthia Slater. Nosferatu bus.
Yes, no, it is mine. Okay. For Nosferatu, Craig Lathrop and Beata Brent-Nerova.
And for Wicked, production designer Nathan Crowley. And set decorator Lee Sandels.
There you go. Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our great privilege to present to you the 97th Academy Annual Academy Award nominated artists for production design. So just a little advance warning. The next ritual is basically we're going to send them all back down now. They needed some exercise. And then we'll invite them up in pairs, and we'll have individual sessions with each of the 5 teams. I hate to use the word team. That sounds so sporty. But anyway, we'll invite them up for individual, and then at the end of that, we will then invite them all back up for the most important part of the day for all of us, the Q&A. And that'll be conducted with a microphone over here, and anyone, I encourage, especially the students out there, to get in that line and ask those questions. And we have a nice window of time, hopefully, for that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, take your seats. Judy, can we have you guys come and join us? Yeah, no, it's good.
Go, Mr. Walsh.
That's right. I'll try not to screw this one up. Are you all right? Are your mics good?
I don't know, is it?
Yeah. I'm going to start with a little short quote. This one was from a writer, Justin Chang, and his description, paraphrase, well, use as few words as possible, was about the brutalists: precision and details and ruthless intelligence. I thought those are pretty good descriptive terms for what you guys accomplished. Yes. So my opening question for you, and this is for both of you, please. What from your past training and experiences prepared you the most for designing the Brutalist? What things did you draw upon to make this thing possible?
I think really it's an entire life of being, I wouldn't say obsessed, but very, very interested in architecture and design and art, and absorbing so much of that since I was about 5 years old. So that, but I'm serious. I remember going to the Guggenheim Museum with I grew up in New York, going to the Guggenheim with my mother when I was 5 and looking at the architecture. So having that history in my head of design and interior design, because something I was also very interested in, and something I shared with my mother that I would talk about with her. From a very young age, I was fascinated by it. So when you spend a lifetime being almost obsessed with those things and then making that into a career, it becomes this sort of inner library that you can draw upon. So in the end, I didn't have to do a lot of research into any of that aspect of the design of the movie, but I could really let myself go and sort of focus on the things that I needed to for the character, such as the design of concentration camps and other things that I needed to incorporate into the architecture of the Institute and those kinds of details. I didn't have to start from scratch. And that was, in a way, very freeing. It was a difficult experience emotionally. And then on an emotional, because I really designed through the character of Laszlo. And on an emotional level, I actually did draw a lot from my own immigrant family and their history. And in fact, I think I gave Brady a few ideas. For example, that Miller changed his name from Molnar to Miller. I had suggested my own family, which changed their name from Slutsky to Sloat. That was my mother's family. But they weren't Hungarian, so Brady came up with I wanted to do a sign that had Molnar, like Sluts, let's just say Slutsky faded underneath, and then the new Sloat sign on top. But ultimately, it was so difficult to get the sign done at all that we just ended up with the Miller sign. So there were things that I deliberately put in that came from my own family history, and that also influenced the emotional process of the building. I forgot the question already, but
You got it.
Patty.
I think my experience would have started when I literally, as soon as I had my driver's license, I was out driving and looking for antiques and finding these little places. I grew up on the east coast of Canada, and there's these fantastic little tiny shops that have all kinds of knickknacks, and I always loved the looking for those items and just finding the treasures. And in this case, all of my career has been that, where we're always looking for those special things that really bring life to the character. And on this movie in particular, I had to find the furniture, and Judy had suggested she wanted it to be American colonial style, because that felt correct, and that it would be really believable that it was mass-produced at the time, and that this furniture shop would have that style.
And it helped make this shop in Hungary look more American too,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
yeah.
So there was reasons for that, and so and then drawing on Laszlo character, I think it was just, I have a lot of architect friends, and there's definitely, if you go into their homes, there's always modern furniture, mid-century, and iconic pieces. So I was just drawing from that and thinking, he only has a few things in his house, but what would be there would be that type of design and that type of furniture.
So Judy, when you really had to become Laszlo, in a way.
I am Laszlo.
That answers that question.
So how did you decide what to build and what to shoot in a model? How did that work out? Because you couldn't build the whole thing.
No,
the
and
whole
we never thought we were going to build the whole thing. I mean, that was my first discussion with Brady, even when I was interviewing for the job. But we were always planning to design the whole building so that we could make informed decisions about what we would build and what we would shoot on location. And then we weren't initially going to build a model that would be shot as the building, but I think Brady and Lowell found an image of an early Star Wars shoot where there was, it was a great image. It showed, I think Lucas was in it and a couple of other people at a camera on the floor of a desert, and maybe 15 feet away was this little spaceship model. And it was really cool. I said, why don't we build the model, of the Institute and shoot it as the Institute, and then we have a lot more leeway. So we did. We built like a 10-foot long concrete-looking model, interior and exterior. They were two separate models. And like when you see that like GoPro-looking thing of the model of the Institute getting built, the model was the basis for that. So it wasn't all like VFX. It was the physical model was the basis for that. It was such a great model, and it went into the dumpster, of course, because and no, the movie wasn't distributed yet, and nobody had the money to pay for it to be stored. But I wish I had it. I don't have big enough space for it, but it would be great. And the interior too. And there's some shots in the Biennale of going into the interior with one of those little cameras. So it was very cool. And and I gave a Q&A in San Rafael, and I met the model maker who was in the picture of Star Wars. So he came up to me afterwards, and he was like, I was the chief model maker at like Lucasfilms. And then I looked him up afterwards, and he was in the picture. That was like the coolest thing of this whole experience. But then also while we were scouting in Hungary, we were looking for places that could pass for parts of the Institute. So we had this design of the Institute, so that's how we knew what to look for. And the chapel was shot in a silo that was a location, and I only had to modify a few things about the design of the Institute to accommodate locations, just like small things. And it was just I think it was a really informative and smart process of making it look a lot bigger than it was, the way that we did it. But it all began with the design of the institutes, and that was the blueprint.
This is a little cheeky question, but we always face this. What was your best call sheet and your most challenging call sheet?
God, I don't ever look at them. I mean, I'm always aware of what we're going to be shooting, So if I had to look at a call sheet to know, I'd be in like big trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you had to prep for.
Yeah, I mean, well, there was.
Judy, I can answer that one.
You answer it.
So it was for the furniture store.
Okay. Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good one.
So
Good one. Yeah.
the furniture was shipped in a container, and it was supposed to arrive 3 weeks before we needed it. And its first stop was Hamburg. It was held up there, and they contacted us and said, we need the weights of each item, not the entire. So I got together with somebody, and we just made it up. We were Googling what things weigh, and we made it add up to exactly the amount. And then they got back to us from Germany and said, it's been accepted, it's on the way. And we were like, thank God. So then the next step is it had arrived in Budapest, but nobody told us it was there. And when we found out it was there, they said, oh, it needs to be inspected, and you need to book the inspection, and you've got to wait about 5 days to get this booking. So then that happened, and this was getting so tight. This was now going to arrive 1 or 2 days before we had the set shooting.
Before the call sheet.
Yes, yes. So, and we knew it was coming, and I
by the
said,
way, it didn't just have furniture, it had vintage wallpaper that we'd bought in the States to put in Attila's apartment that was
yes,
above the furniture
and Christmas
store.
Christmas
yes,
decorations that we bought on eBay, and they'd all come to my house. And
It
then
was
they
all
ended
for
up-
this one set.
Yeah. So, and I had said, is there any way we can push this? Absolutely
Any
not.
way.
They said, you need to come up with a plan B, because this might not get here in time. And I was almost in tears. I thought, I can't even imagine plan B, because the reason we did it in the first place is we did the research, and we really didn't have, that style of furniture doesn't exist there. And anything that does, it was too chunky, and the finish was the wrong color, and it just wasn't going to work.
quantity.
No.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, it did arrive 4 o'clock the night before we were shooting it. And so we had no time to do the custom upholstering. We had to do it ourselves. We were pinning everything. And and my team didn't speak English, so I was using sign language, and I was unloading with the guys. And so when we got it onto the set, luckily I'd done a really big floor plan. I had a great floor plan because I was buying the things myself in Canada, so I knew exactly where it was gonna go. So I'd be running with them and going, put it here. And the next morning, I think call was 7 a.m., and it was there, it was ready. We stayed into the night. We had people that there was the first AD's wife was helping us decorate the Christmas decorations.
Oh, Laura, yeah.
And it was just, but it happened. We did it, but that call sheet was definitely the most stressful call sheet.
The way that you laid it out in advance, like that was perfect, because you couldn't have done it
Yeah,
without that.
it's true. Thank God for that.
That just gave me a stomach ache.
And that's dedication also.
But Patty, there were so many furniture. I mean, you had to design the chair, right?
Yes.
The chair. I mean, when you're talking minimalist, you can't get much more minimalist than the original.
Well, Judy should talk about the design of the chair, because that was something that.
I did design the chair.
Yeah,
You mean the
we
chair in the
were going,
library? Yeah.
That's
we were
such a huge
going to
chair.
have, and as you
I'm
said,
Laszlo, so yeah.
we were going to have furniture designed and have builders there, and then Judy can say what happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was trying, when I came into the movie, I was like, Hungary's going to have these really interesting craftspeople, young, like, because they have a lot of young, interesting designers there, and the art directors I was working with who turned out not to have as many connections, and people don't want to work for free. We all know that from experience, but I don't know Hungary that well, and they were inexperienced, so they didn't know that well. So nobody wanted to do the things that they thought they would want to do. So no young designers wanted to help us on this movie. Let me just put that. So I did do everything myself, but in the beginning I thought there's going to be some young, cool designers to help me design this furniture, because I'm not a furniture designer. But no, so I did design all his Lajlo's furniture, and now I'm glad I did, because I can say I designed everything that Lajlo designed. Myself, human intelligence, by the way, and just to get that out there, okay? I mean, I may not be that human sometimes, but I'm human. And it was hard, but I also did that very, very, very deliberately. Like, I really motivated every aspect of the furniture by thinking about where he was in his life and what he was seeing around him. And it was, as I said, it was while I was in New York. I don't know if I said that just now, but I said it today. And I was in New York when I found out I was going to be having to design all the furniture. And so I bought some lawn chairs, like those plastic woven lawn chairs on eBay, but I I wrote the vendors and said, you have to ship them overnight. And I got them, and I packed them up in a cardboard and brought them back to Budapest with me on the plane. You can do that, by the way, if any of you are in a similar situation. And I did make production pay for the extra luggage. And because I knew getting them in Hungary would be impossible. And then I placed them you placed them in the set. They didn't end up in the movie, but they were Lajlo's inspiration for the weaving pattern on the lounge chair in the library, and also the weaving pattern on the 2 chairs in the window. So I was trying to motivate everything by something Lajlo saw around him. Obviously, this tubular steel was something he learned at the Bauhaus. But my feeling was that at this point in his life, when he's been in a concentration camp, which, how could you possibly be creative after that? And then he's an immigrant, and then he's got nothing, and he's depleted, and then his cousin's like, design me some furniture. I figured he's back to his basics. He remembers what he learned at the Bauhaus, and he has no money. He's trying to get some inspiration, and he sees this stuff, pulls 2 drawers from a dresser in the American colonial furniture, and we used those in the desk that he makes. That was really fun, actually. And Ferko, your lead, was he the lead man?
He was the lead.
He helped make some of the furniture. I mean, it was very, like, we didn't know who made what, so we were just like, who's gonna make this and who's gonna make that? And I think we couldn't get anything chromed in time, so he spray painted it. And I was like, oh my God, it's gonna look horrible. But it looked good. I mean,
And the shelves,
he did
the
a
shelves
good
of the
job.
initial
Yeah.
Art Deco shelves in the library.
Yeah, I mean,
They were showing
I have to say,
us-
they know how to spray paint chrome look there. So it's like,
Well,
yeah. So,
And they
you
did a great
learn,
job.
live and
When
learn.
they painted the drafting tables, the color, the green
Yeah,
that
I
Judy
brought
loves.
back a green drafting table mat so they could see the color and paint it that color. So, I actually say it was fun to have to work with very limited means and really be creative with how we did it and still have it come out successfully. And I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it a lot. And to be so limited in how we could do things and have to think of how to achieve it.
And here you are.
I'm not just saying that. I really enjoyed it.
yeah, no, it took you back to the way you started. It sounds like you have a lot in common with Wicked.
That's what?
It sounds like you have a lot in common with Wicked, the way you had to make your
Oh,
movie.
yeah. So much. Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on,
My fingers. Yeah.
and we'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we set up conclave, please? It's good you're wearing your best red.
Yeah.
As I mentioned in the last one, there was a quote from Edward Berger that I thought was pretty smart, and he's a smart guy. The church is an important institution that gives us a cultural identity. And I thought it was a nice summation. My question out of that is, again, it's not a documentary. and we're dealing with very sacred stuff. Where were you allowed to exercise creative license to deviate from history, protocols, and facts? And, you know,
Sure. So I guess we weren't allowed. We just did it because it's a dramatic piece. We didn't phone the Vatican up and say we're going to change a few things.
well, that's the great thing about the Catholic. You can just always ask
Yeah.
for
Always.
forgiveness.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So basically, there's a certain amount of a conclave that we know that is out in the internet, and we did our tours around the Vatican. But the thing that interested us as filmmakers was the stuff that we don't know, the behind the scenes, and that gave us creative license, and that really tapped into the fabulous script and Edward's desire to bring more of a thriller aspect to the Vatican. And that's when we played with a more brutal fascist design in the Casa Santa Marta, the opposite of what we think Rome has to offer. And the fact that we were filming it in Rome was brilliant, so we could have these two juxtapositions, which Gus runs through the whole film. It's like the clash of the ancient traditions of that religion and what the sort of forward motion of it. Yeah.
And Cynthia?
So, yes, it was very challenging because everybody knows what the Sistine Chapel looks like. And, okay, it was built and we put it up on stage in a theater. But then the Casa Santa Marta really had to be invented, discovered. We scouted for a very long time a real location because production wanted to save money. And we were going up and down in dreadful, terrible places. And they were saying, okay, we'll do it here, and the wall there would be a big hole in the wall, and you could see the city on the other side. And you said, well, this is dangerous. How are we going to do this? It was really crazy. And then finally, Susie got the courage to say, no, we can't find it. We have to build it. And so she
Just for a little more money. Oops.
The Vatican's good for it.
Yeah, but I was polite. Please.
I want to know what really went through both of your minds when you're reading the script and it says interior Sistine Chapel. Right.
Please meet.
Next.
Well, do you know, it was quite exciting because when Edward phoned up and sent me the script, you get given it, you read it, oh my God, okay. And then he says, and we're going to do it in Rome. Well, then things start to relax a little bit. It's Rome for Rome, and we're filming at Cinecittà, and they had a certain amount of flattage that we were able to sort of pull out. And the craftsmen and women, I think, had painted the Sistine Chapel 3 times, so they knew what they were doing, and they were, they really knocked it out of the park with their construction. And it was all the other elements, actually, that were just a real treat to do, yeah.
But all the seating that you had to find, I mean, just finding matching chairs. I don't know about in Italy, but here it's a challenge. Finding all the matching chairs in all the places that you had to have it.
Yes, we had 113 cardinals. So, the chairs all had to be the same. And that's also in the canteen scene. And we were just searching and putting it, and then obviously, production again said, well, mix the colors, do the canteen with different colored chairs. What's the problem? We have them. And I said, no, this isn't going to work.
Sitting on.
We have to, we have to get them all the same. And so we were ordering, from everywhere, and my assistants were in tears. I mean, I can't tell you. It was a big issue.
Unbelievable. It looked amazing.
Thank you.
So it's the same question again. What from your past training and experiences do you think you drew upon to take on this challenge?
The main thing was to have an open mind, to not let your previous jobs necessarily influence what you're about to do. And once, with most jobs, when you do research about a known system or a part of history, it's important to honour that and have a sort of sincerity about understanding the process, but then to throw it to the back of your mind and let it inspire and inform your designs rather than restrict or give you boundaries. It's a cinematic storytelling piece, and that was, I guess I start most projects like that with a blank piece of paper, and then you draw a line with the budget, you draw a line with the location, and you draw a line with the time zone, and you're left a little triangle, and that informs all your decisions, you know, pretty strongly. And I think it's quite important to have those boundaries early on.
And, well, for me, I live in Rome, so this comes kind of simple. I've grown up in beauty and churches and paintings and everything, so it's like it's contemporary while they're really instead ancient, so I go with the flow.
But you really had to imagine where they were living in St. Marta. It was Spartan, but not so much. I mean, you really gave it so much character in the minimalist bits that you can do. How did you put that together?
Well, we did this minimal research, and it was really bad, and they had this very, kind of tacky furniture kind of thing. But then with Susie, we came up and we thought it was more like a residence, like a bed and breakfast. Everybody had the same kind of furniture. And by the way, the build wasn't that big. I mean, we didn't have that many rooms, but we were changing the furniture inside the room. And so I had that built from a company up in the north, and we had to say, okay, and give them a down payment before Christmas, and we were going to shoot right after Christmas. And the production, of course, didn't want to pay for anything because they didn't have the money. And so we were kind of really panicking because it had to all kind of, look the same. It had to come out of the same company. The beds had to be the same. And then we finally got it together, and then they delivered, and then we were missing pieces, and they had to fit perfectly in the set. So we had some great carpenters, and we were building the furniture to match and to fill the holes on the set, and they were great. So we kind of had to have everything made.
It was very exciting, though. Everybody wants to know where the Pope sleeps.
Yes.
That was great.
Yeah. That question about, did you have a tech advisor?
Yeah, we had a technical advisor all the way through. And to be quite honest, I think he was more dealt with the actors and costumes. I didn't want to be restricted by a technical advisor on the set, which sometimes can happen. So I luckily he was Italian, and my Italian's not that great. So,
So you didn't have an argument about putting a red carpet down in the Sistine Chapel, right?
Exactly. We did do some things that were so different from, the reality of a conclave, and I didn't want to be, restricted by that.
Yeah. Oh, and just a follow-up question on the Last Judgment, which is prominent. Did you guys have that painted, or was it a digital?
Painted, these amazing artists at Cinecittà, completely amazing,
Yeah. Well, as I say, I've got that backdrop if you ever need it.
When we do the Pope too,
Yes, I look forward to that.
And the colors were, red became a character, red and white. And how did you work with, both of you, how did you work with costumes? Because you had slight variations, they were like burgundies and...
the Lizzie Crystal, who was the costume designer, she chose the red. So we did all our camera tests early on, and it was her sort of anchor point of that red color. And then Cynthia and I basically jumped between, so where our tones are different and our textures and our fabrics, just to play with that line of color. Otherwise, our color palette is really restricted, and we pulled right back so that the cardinals remain front and center, the most important, and they can be isolated in our sets by their color. And also, red has such a fantastic, visual language. It can be, desire, it can be hate, it can be love, it can be life. So we absolutely played with that thread all the way through with all its different factors.
The damasks and the drapes and the bedding for the
we had, obviously lots of reds and different materials and textures. And the big decision was the flooring of the Sistine Chapel, which usually is beige. So imagine the film with a beige floor in the Sistine, it would have been totally different. And not the same. And so we went with the flooring, the red flooring, and that really pulled out the other colors. And the cardinals were, I think, came out better. And also for the tables, we chose a different kind of red, and we made those wide pleats. And then instead of having a little tablecloth, a short tablecloth on top, which is usually what you get, we went with a long runner, and we chose that with Susie and I to light the faces and the cardinals and give it a different tone, shine. Right. It's kind of design.
Best call sheet and most challenging call sheet.
Probably the
If you read them.
explosion. Yeah.
We blow up the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, blowing up. And that was a bit more elaborate in the first pass of the script, and there's going to be rain pouring in and all sorts, which would have been fun to do, but again, probably financial reasons reduced that a little bit. But the power is still there, and that's the beauty of the edit, finally. But yeah, the great thing about Edward, he's one of the most prepped directors I've ever worked with. So we'd done so much research in how that explosion was going to happen. Special effects had done some tests and rehearsals on another stage. So we actually filmed it in the morning, and we did 4 takes. And it was like a team of prop men came in with hoovers. The cast went out one end. The prop men came in. It was like choreographed prop and set dressing. Yeah, it was really great. They come in, and we just did it 4 times and in the bag. Yeah.
They had stenciled out the objects on the tables of each cardinal. So we put the stencil down and then put the objects and then move on and do it really fast. Brilliant. Everybody.
That's brilliant.
Right.
So that's a reset for 110 cardinals. That's a nice call sheet.
Simple. And you did it 4 times.
4 times in the morning.
Yeah.
4 times times 4.
That's impressive.
Well, extraordinary.
That's impressive.
Do you have a last question? Well, there you go. You have,
Thank you.
no, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's exhausting.
You guys have so much in common with Brutalist. I was just astounded. You could have shared sets. You were shooting in the same part of the world.
It's true. Next time. Dune next
Brutalist
time.
2. I think there'll be, or is there going to be a Dune 3, I assume?
I don't know.
Oh, no. You're not going to break the news here today. I'm sorry, guys. So, Hungary, Italy, Jordan, Abu Dhabi, Namibia. Thank you. And I'm going to quote someone who knows something about this, which is you. Design for design cannot exist if it needs to support the storytelling, inform the viewer of the past as well as the future, and have a point of view. That makes sense to me. That's pretty clear. So, where do you go from there?
Well, you know, like Frank Herbert wrote an amazing book, amazing series of books, and what's great about his writing is that he gives little cues, but he doesn't give the whole picture. So he leaves it to the imagination of the reader. And we had a script, and then obviously you take the arc of the character. You take every planet. So I take it kind of a planet at a time and a character at a time, because it's a huge task. And you're like, okay, today let's tackle the Chiton, the Imperial planet. So you base yourself on a history of the world, but also history of the part 1. And part 1, there was I had a huge influence from an architect, an Italian architect called Carlo Scarpa. And and we were shooting in Budapest, Hungary, and I was like, okay, in the real world where there's an imperial planet, and not imperial planet, but an imperial country or city like the Romans or now the Americans, the influence on the world.
Spice and other stuff, yeah.
So the influence on other cultures and other civilization on which they have like a certain grasp over, obviously they're going to bring their aesthetics. So, someone's calling you. So obviously, I thought it would be a good idea to pay tribute to the Grandmaster of Carlos Carpa, because on part one, he was, as I said, he was a huge influence on the architecture of both Caladan, even Getty Prime, and Arakeen, the city of Arakeen. And so we went to I said, okay, let's find the masterpiece of the true master, and it was like 7-hour drive from Budapest. It's in the commune of the Attivoli commune in the northern part of Italy. It's the Brion Cemetery. So that's, you take, okay, so that's actually, I'm sorry, I'm talking, making not a lot of sense when I'm talking, but that's how I am. So that's how I took that one. The other planet of Getty Prime, where the Arconans live, Denis had always wanted the world to be black, plastic molded, and on the Christmas before pre-production started, as I was doing concept work, I was driving about an hour away from Montreal, an hour and a half away from Montreal, and I noticed this field filled with septic tanks. And I said, okay, this is great. It's like a vision of Getty Prime. And they're all like, it's black, it's plastic, it's molded, and what's inside is pretty much what the Arconans are. So and then for the Fremen culture, it's like, well, I'm going to go back to the Arconans, because at the end of part one, they carpet bombed Arakeen, the capital of Arrakis, and what a better way. The emperor gave the Arconans freedom, like, okay, I want to see spice flow, and just like go exploit the natural resources of that planet. And I said, well, what if they actually carpet bombed the place? So how would they rebuild the city? They would just basically bring their culture, like a cancer on the city, with their inflatable structures. And so that was, it's kind of, that's kind of my approach. It's like I read the story, and I like everybody, like all the designers here, and I try to get influence from my, from who I am, from my signature, I guess.
Yeah, it's that one thing that you see. When I speak with students, I always say you find one thing, and that is the key, and it just nails it, and everything else seems to fall into place.
Yeah.
And I know when you told us that story, and it's the bath that, forgive me, I can't remember the character.
The Baron?
When the Baron is in the bath, and you were telling me about that, inspired by the septic tanks, and then Shane with the...
Actually, can I
please.
The bath set isn't, inside the toilets, there's a little floater in the back, in the tank. That's actually the set of where he's taking a bath.
So you did your research well.
Yeah, I did. I was fixing the
Up at
toilet
the
at my
tank.
house, and I was like, oh, that could be a nice set.
But you never know what will inspire you, right? But then Shane, talk about the breathing apparatus that you came up with, which is quite fascinating.
I've got to say that when we started the movie, or at least when I started, Patrice had a 280-page lookbook. We never deviated from that thing. And it was such an amazing thing to be able to take illustrations and engineer them. And the breathing apparatus came from a combination of an acoustic exhibit that Patrice had seen in Montreal, and a pair of futuristic speakers that I had home. And the reality is that breathing apparatus was completely physical. It was not a VFX on any level. It had the big ball that had the little pokies in it, 112 that had to pneumatically all work at the same time, and the second piece that expanded and contracted. And there was an amazing prop builder in the UK, and I just need to give a shout out to Pierre Boana, who is legendary. I mean, the man is an absolute master and a gentleman at building props. And he did it in such a short window. And, it was the big thing about this movie is that everything is a build. There is nothing off a shelf. everything is built and manipulated for purpose, and it's all about engineering. And it was such an amazing part of the show to not have to just decorate. You need to build and engineer, and it's all about math and textures, and it was really great.
And didn't you use a technocrane to manipulate it?
Yeah, we actually used 3 for the seat for the throne. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
It's all good. I'm used to it.
I know you. But no, it's like, yeah, ouch, I know. It's like, that's what I have to live with on a daily basis.
Get no respect.
No respect at all.
Very true.
No, it's like Shane had designed this amazing throne and the breathing apparatus, and he was asking me one day, okay, so how do you see the movement? I said, well, they're all independent. Like, and he said, okay. So we had Guy Micheletti, our key grips as well. This is, for me, 3 technocranes that kind of animate the movement to be on camera, so yeah.
Yeah, it was actually 3 technocranes, I think, in the end. 1 for the throne and 2 independently for the other ones. And yeah,
So for that floating movement.
again, it was a physical thing. It was not a VFX.
You know, it's in camera is always best.
And all human imagination as well, should I say.
You know, this same thing applies to you guys as well. It's what in your past prepared you for what you've done on this and your approach to solving your problems?
I'm gonna inspire myself by Susie and Jody because it's kind of the same answer. Ever since I was a kid, I like to, in my parents' basement, I used to be building worlds with whatever I could find. Whether it was tinfoil, papier mâché, or fabric, and Legos. I was a huge Lego fan, and my parents were. They were encouraging our curiosity and exposing us to all form of art. And when I was going to school in Montreal, taking the subway, we have beautiful subway stations in Montreal. And I would wake up earlier, take like a 2 bus earlier than the bus that would take me to school at right on time, just to get outside a couple of visiting subway stations and looking, and they were like all brutalist architecture. And I think that curiosity and the sense of observation, I think was, and reading, so I think that's kind of what prepared me.
Shane?
You know, as a decorator, we are more like diplomats. You know, it's really about management of people. And I think leading up to that, you know, we had hundreds of technicians. And I've got to say that we built some amazing stuff in Budapest. The technicians that I had on my crew were absolutely world class. And, you know, we had a great team in New Zealand and really great teams in UAE and Jordan. And so for me, it's really management skills and being able to get the best out of the people because they're not just my ideas. We rely on people to bring stuff to us, and it's always a complete collaboration. So for me, it's building those relationships and being able to get the best out of people, that they really want to do that. And that's really, for me, what leads up to this, because as we get older, I find we become better at being able to sort of handle situations as a professional. And, you know, I always encourage people that come on a crew to have a great experience. And we really want that to be what that is. And I think when they have a good experience, it goes on camera, for sure.
Absolutely.
Doing what we do is hard enough, so at least let's make it fun.
Exactly.
We're privileged to do that, so.
No, without a great team, we're just a pile of ideas, right? Honestly. Shane, I want you to, forgive me, love. Shane, I need Shane to explain, talk about the tent fabric, because it was epic. The journey to the finished product.
Yeah, so the small tent, they had shot that in #1, and Patrice wanted to re-engineer that for #2. And so I have a really great group of women in New Zealand called the Textile Collective. It's a group of 12 women. New Zealand has really great textile builders. They go to school for it. They know how to do it. So they know how to manipulate fabric. So when we came to that process, Patrice wanted it to look like a leaf. He wanted to look natural and organic. So we experimented with laser cutting on cork, leather, other synthetic materials, and we went through probably about 70 samples that they would manufacture for us. And when it came time to building that tent,
And nothing pleased him.
that is very true. The fabric was a combination of 7 layers. It was the initial print with silkscreen with texture, and then it went to fiberglass because Patrice couldn't have it go straight across. It had to be concave. It had to sit a certain way, and it had to get the perfect light through it with the DP. And as you know, when you're working in the business, you're not just pleasing one person, you're pleasing many. And so as a diplomat, it really was truly a work of art that took 6 months and so much engineering and experimentation. But when you get there, it's very satisfying. And no one really sees that. No one really knows what goes beyond that. But it was really such a painful, lovely experience.
Yes.
Can't have a brutalist movie without pain, you just can't separate the two. All right, I don't think this probably applies to you. You might have a thought. Your best call sheet and your most challenging call sheet.
Well, we were lucky because our first AD, Toby Efferman, started quite early in the project, and I cherish relationships with first ADs just because they're our best allies.
Yeah.
And or not, but in that case, Toby was very whenever he was doing a call sheet, he would send me a bootleg and say, how does it work for you? Because I know you've got changeovers and revamps of sets and and I want to make sure that it works for you. And so we really we're really a good team for that before he showed production, and obviously did the same thing with costumes and the DP but no, it was a good team effort for that. And there were some challenges, but it's always okay, then can you accommodate us for that? But it was a very good team effort.
So I want to, having not many surprises on your call sheet, talk about, both of you, how you dealt with when you shot with the infrared.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because none of us can
Speak into the
prepare for that.
microphone,
You can prepare for, shooting black and white in different ways, but Greg wanted to shoot infrared for the gladiator scene, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Greg proposed that or suggested that to Denis, and we did some very preliminary tests, and the eyeballs look very, very eerie, and it created this look. So Denis said, okay, let's make some more tests, and we were the lucky department, I have to say, because because we with the infrared, the black and white, we realized that. Costumes, let's say. Lady Fenring's dress was black. The Baron's costume was black, but with infrared, the fabric used for Lady Fenring's costume turned white. And we tried, and it was bizarre. Some fabric would actually become white, some would stay black. We tested it outside with natural light. We tested inside artificial light, and it was still the same result. Our makeup department, because everybody has tattoos now, and I don't, but a lot of people have tattoos. A lot of actors have tattoos, so makeup artists need to cover those tattoos. And they would pierce through the infrared camera, that you'd see the tattoos. And I would love to be able to tell you that we found a solution, but we did not. To this day, it's still like, we don't understand what happened. Then he decided to embrace the change of color in the costume of Lady Fenring. And, but it was I would love to say a learning experience, but it's still as mysterious as the pyramids.
A happy accident.
Haunting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that sums it
I
up.
did not get to talk about my call sheet experience.
I'm so sorry.
No, please, please, please.
No. Can you make it brief?
Pardon?
Can you make it a brief?
Sure. The wind traps that you saw during that were high up on a mountain. And, you know, they had to be helicoptered up to get placed. And the night before they shot, or the day before they shot, there was a windstorm. And those wind traps were completely destroyed because we didn't get up the mountain to take them down. But the people in Jordan ran a power cord and a spot welder 1.1 kilometers from a truck up to the mountain and stayed overnight to re-weld those things to put them back together for that one very, very simple shot. But, you know, that's really what we go through as, yeah.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Patrice.
Can we set up Nosferatu, please? Yeah. Coming from all sides. So, pretty simple stuff.
Did you lose your notes?
Yeah, cheat notes.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to quote someone else this time, if I can find the page. I can. Who am I quoting? Oh, I'm quoting myself. I think it's a true rite of passage that all designers should make at least one vampire movie in their lifetime. Was this your first, for either of you?
Yes.
Yeah. And how'd that go?
You're here.
No, it's an interesting. If you haven't had that experience, I wish it upon you all. But you know, it's just getting the blood right, which you and I know about. What from your past training experiences do you think you drew upon most to take on this adventure? Because it really was an adventure.
We've had some great answers already, and I'm going to cop out and be a lot like them. You know, it's really a life experience to do any of these things. One of the probably one of the most, because this was a big film for me, for us, as we, you know, as we're moving along. So one of the most important things is just how many times that you started to do a show that you didn't know how you were going to do it. Bits of projects that you just don't know, and so just the confidence to know that you're going to go forward and do the research that you need to do, and be prepared to do it. All the rest of the things that you've heard answered before in terms of growing up as a child and building models and all of those sort of things, all of that certainly goes into it. But I think for me, one of the most interesting things about the job is when you go into something that you have no idea how you're going to do it. Yeah. And that's kind of every show.
Yeah. I think we're all junkies that way, you know. Beata.
For me,
Hold your mic closer.
I always, loved history. I always loved, object and the storytelling by object. And so actually this was why I started to work for cinema. It was by just like a happy accident. But it was, I love things. I love the history and, how they are going to us. So it was, And of course, I was doing also, the dolly houses from matchboxes. So So that was, yeah, my.
So you actually built that backlot, is that
Yes.
correct? And
Yeah.
then, Beata, you had to decorate everything. So if you could both talk a little bit about how do you decide that you need to build it? How do you build it? And then how do you make it come alive? Because it had different levels, pre-plague, when everything is rosy-ish, and then onward. So.
Right. Well, I mean, first, we did look around. We looked at a lot of different cities, Hanseatic cities around the Baltic coast. There's been a few wars since the 1830s.
Yep.
So there's not a lot that's, there was a lot of great buildings that I could find, but I couldn't find a streetscape. And also, there was so much of just the atmosphere that we were wanting to get for this film that we wouldn't be able to find on location. So we knew pretty early on that we were going to build it. And then in terms of, the actual construction, I mean, I just wanted to make it look as real as possible. Obviously, I wanted all the buildings to have personality. I didn't want anything to be plumb. Also didn't want it to look like a cartoon. So there was a lot of research.
And there was some movement in.
And there's some movement in it, and there was a lot of, the backlot at Barrendov is flat as a pancake, so there was a lot of road work to make it so that we'd have a hill that would go up. It was important to me that the characters, when they were in certain scenes, I wanted to show the effort of having to go up the hill. When Thomas is coming back from the play, he has to go up the hill to go to his house. When he's going to his job, he comes down the hill, but then as he's going to his job, he goes up a hill. When we go up to the Von Franz, I want him to go up a hill. It's just, I wanted the effort. So that was the backlot. So it was a large backlot. We had 5 different blocks, I guess, we were doing.
Oh, wow.
Backlot was quite large, so it's like I think all the decorators know this feeling that you start to dress and actually nothing happens within 1 week, 2 weeks. So there are layers of small things and aging. We have been researching all the stuff in some kind of chronicles and city reports. So we found a lot of interesting stuff, and we wanted to put everything in just to feel it. So I had a great crew that could manufacture everything, locksmiths, blacksmiths, cabinet makers, and sculptors. So I was very happy to have all these great teams, so we could achieve everything that we imagined.
Yeah, and then as far as the plague is concerned, I mean, it was Beata helped me bring some color into the sets for when it was bustling and that was part of what we were trying to do. I wanted to make sure I designed something that could be both of these things in one. So, we designed everything. It was brick Gothic anyway, so we were doing everything in brick Gothic. So Beata brought some color in, and then when the plague came, we were able to strip that back down and be more monochromatic and add some snow and some dead bodies. And hopefully you have a plague.
Well, it's tough because it's a tough one to research in a way because there's not a lot of photographs in the 1830s.
No.
As we know, a lot of those buildings were wood, so they didn't survive. And your research was impeccable. And what I felt always is I was watching a Caspar David Friedrich painting come to life because you had all the moods and the emotions of those. And there's a great school of painters from that period. The
Romantics are great, and I'm glad you picked that up. Yes, there's an absolute moment of
steal from the best.
Painting. I'm trying to remember the name of the painting, but yes.
Yeah. And then you have sand dunes that you have to figure out. We take that for granted, but it was more of a challenge for you, wasn't it?
Well, the sand dunes were funny because I did scout a bunch of beaches along the Baltic coast and in the Northern Sea. But we ended up not having enough money to go there, so we were going to shoot it. We shot it in a lake just outside of Prague. But it didn't have the sand dunes. It just had a beach. And I said, you know, I really want the sand dunes. I really liked it from the original film, I should say. And so I brought in truck after truck after truck of sand, and we built the sand dunes. Luckily we did, because we shot that on a Monday, and over the weekend they had been having floods, and so they opened the dam above the lake, and it rose 3.5 feet, and if we hadn't built the sand dunes, the water came right up to the sand dunes. And so if we hadn't built them, they wouldn't have had a set that day. So we just get lucky every now and then.
That could fall into the worst call sheet day.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely the worst call sheet day. Well, we did have
That might fit. That might fit, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Well, the dwellings the interiors were so amazing. The impeccable detail that you achieved with the dressing and just the architecture, the drapery, everything just looks so amazing. How did you source that? I mean, was it readily available?
You know, as it was 1838, everything, you know, all we were searching for was like antique and old stuff. So the challenge was to bring stuff which is in a good condition. So there were a lot of things that we had to restore, refurbish, and reupholster. So it was this which was very challenging. You know, we wanted to use the original stuff, the period stuff, which is great, but of course to have the good condition, it was the most challenging. And even the fabric, actually we couldn't. We had a lot of, you found a lot of period fabric, but it's always kind of fragile and we can't really use it. So we printed, we waved our fabric, which was like time demanding, but we still did it. And the great source of inspiration was the Vienna Museum of Applied Art. So, and they were just great. They sent us also a digital period patterns, digital colors, so we could replicate some of the pattern and colors. So yeah, it was everything was time demanding, so it was quite tough.
And you built some as well. They built some of the furniture that we couldn't find as well.
The Biedermeier,
Biedermeier furniture.
Yeah. Because we found a few guys that are very good in veneer furniture, and they helped us a lot. So we could even some of the furniture make. So
it's amazing.
I mean, again, just to be really clear, you built 90% of that movie. Right?
We built almost everything, yeah.
Except for a little stonework at the outside of the castle, which looked very real.
And we even built, there was plugs, and we did build a little bit in the castle as well. The two sets that we didn't build that were the hospital sets, the doctor's office and the morgue. Those were in Valadovna, which is a complex outside of, in Prague. All the other interiors we built.
Yeah.
And most of the exteriors.
I think it's
Part of that also, I always say, part of that is just because working with Rob and Jaron, the director, Robert Eggers, they have very specific shots that they want to get. And so to get those shots, you almost always have to make it. And then a lot of these sets actually had to move because he's doing long takes. So a lot of the sets break apart and move and have a bit of choreography that you don't see on camera, but it's going on to allow the camera to get where it wants. They don't like to use steady cams, they don't like to use handheld, so if everything is on a crane and on a dolly, sometimes it's the set that has to move out of the way to make it all work.
And one thing that was interesting was the Roma camp was just, I mean, it's a small scene in the context of the movie, but the details of getting the little huts correct, and the thatching, and the inn, and all the camp, and the details. I'm sure that that took up so much time. And it is relatively, to the movie, a quick scene.
Well, I did a bunch of research before we even got there, but I also was able to go to Romania, and there's a couple of open-air museums that I was able to go to where they had literally moved and collected buildings around Romania from different periods that we've all been to those places, right? Anyway, that's
Not in Southern California.
It was really exciting to go to see them, and I nicked a bunch of the way they carved and obviously everything that we were doing. But that was the inspiration for that, really what I saw.
Inhabiting each of the tents, I mean, it looked like people had just stepped out of them, and it was all the small pieces.
It was a very funny set, and I had a great Romanian buyer that he was hunting for really nice and period stuff, textile, ceramic. So we brought a lot of stuff in Prague, and then we also manufactured furniture and some of the ceramic as well. We made a few copies. We bought a lot of books from Romania, which were in Romanian language. It was quite tricky, but we managed to translate them. So even all the embroideries, everything, every pattern had a meaning, had something in it. So it was quite funny to do this set. And the more we dived in it, more we discovered from the history and from this like a spooky fear of pastime, of future, of even of present. So it was quite exciting.
Can't let you off the hook. Worst and best call sheet.
Well, we did one. I don't know. We were very organized, and certainly, as Patrice was saying earlier, I had a great relationship with the first AD, and also Rob and Jaron they plan everything out, and so we were fairly organized. But I will say, the ones that gave me pause was probably the day we had several thousand rats on set.
I was going to say wrangling
I wanted
rats.
to ask, you have to talk about the rat mats.
I didn't have to wrangle the rats, but definitely had nightmares of where those rats might get to.
Can you talk about your rat mats?
Oh yes, I did.
You should patent those.
Oh yeah, rat mats. So for the chapel, and there's the scene towards the end. There's a chapel where there's 100,000 rats in the place. So we had.
That's a bad call sheet, isn't it?
Yeah. So we had several thousand rats in the foreground, but we needed rats everywhere. So I made these half-meter by half-meter. We called them rat mats. There were rats climbing over each other that were flocked and had tails so that we could cover the floor. And then visual effects came and animated rats on top of that. But just so that they didn't have to deal with a complete blank slate, we had the rat mats. And they looked fantastic when you photographed them.
It was amazing.
But they didn't move.
I have to say that I didn't have really like the worst call sheet, but there was one week that was very tough for me because we had like 3 big sets to be finished. And as I wanted to be everywhere and to dress everything by myself, it was just for me, it was like 16 hours, 18 hours days. But it was fun. I loved it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Let's set up Wicked, please.
Wow.
Well, all 5 films have so much in common. I just don't know how to pick you guys apart. It's pretty.
There aren't crosses in most of them except for Wicked. You're the only one without crucifix shape.
Another extraordinary quote from someone by the name of Nathan Crawley. I don't know if you know him. A reimagining, a reorchestration of the very fabric of The Wizard of Oz. This film was really about the joy of making stuff. Stuff.
I think you misquoted me. It says cinema.
No, it says stuff. I can show you
Oh, sure.
the sentence in the word, but that's okay. You can change it. So, you know, where do you begin and where do you end? I mean, fortunately, you were just all in England, right? So that made it a little bit easier, and you had that Wonka thing. So I think you probably had your artisans kind of pre-trained for doing this deep dive. Are those fair enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think the we've worked before several times. I think our challenge was, we've made a lot of practical films in our careers, and the challenge was, can we apply that to a fantasy at that level? And the sort of joy of trying to do it and open that door and push design as far as we can, because we've always been limited by the script and story and subject matter that we had to we couldn't go too far. On films like Interstellar, we had to kind of bring it in so that you wouldn't lose the audience. But here, we could do pure fantasy, and we sort of almost had to. Otherwise, you've got to allow the audience to believe it and almost ignore it, so they're focused on story. So the challenge was, how far can we go?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was a kid, I think it's what we all do in this room. The films which got me as a child was, The Wizard of Oz and Star Wars, and those films created worlds, and you were transported to like another place. And I think that's what we came from. We wanted to create another world.
What a thrill to be able to do that. I mean, it's sort of like Sistine Chapel, recreate the Wizard of Oz, right?
It was terrifying.
Yeah, I know. Now, I'm going to, because I have to ask this question, so forgive me. Unlike Jan, Dina, and myself, you guys don't strike us as being high school drama geeks. So, I'm presuming, and correct me please, but designing a musical is a very different beast, and unique challenges of choreographed physical interactions with the performances and the timing of the storytelling. How did you adapt your past training and experiences to meet the challenges of, no intimidation here, reimagining a Broadway powerhouse and an iconic motion picture musical that many think should just be left alone and not improved upon? No small challenges.
No. I mean, I think that's it. You always want to challenge yourself and do new things. And yes, you're right, we don't come from musical theater, but having said that, we make films and cinema, and I love, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and so you have to. I think as a designer, as you get older, you've got to keep challenging yourself, and you open that door. And we had actually, in fairness, we did Wonka just before, so we'd learn a lot, and then I'd done The Greatest Showman sort of semi by mistake. And I really enjoyed it. And, we got to use color. Nolan doesn't like color.
Yeah. You had a little color in this one.
And so it was a challenge. I mean, you have to learn, and you have to learn quickly. You have to understand that you have to build backlots. Our director, John Chu, wanted to make an old school MGM musical. So you're on backlots, and you can't take 300 dancers out to Iceland on a glacier. You can't do that. So you have to respect their craft, and you have to work with them, at least spend hours and hours trying to figure out movement through some of the set dressing.
Yeah, and just being excited about the project, and curious. That's what's those things came and pulled us all the way through the film, constantly.
And we can offer, I feel like we could offer this group of brilliant people something bigger with our sort of practical approach and surprise, and get the actors in front of real scenery and surprise them, and hopefully improve their performance through it. And I mean, I think this might have been the best film we've ever made.
I would agree, yeah.
Nathan, one of the things that I've learned from sitting here with you over the years is that you use so many old school techniques, but you have adapted them to 21st century. Like when Greatest Showman, you 3D printed things, and The First Man. So in this one, did you use a lot of those techniques, and or was your new skill convincing the producers that you have to plant 7 million tulip bulbs and build a practical train?
It's very difficult. The problem with being a designer is you stand in these big in these giant meetings, and you've got everyone everyone's against the idea of something difficult or something they don't know. And they're not, I think they end up loving it, but you're standing alone convincing a room. So when I started the film, I knew we had to do something that planted a flag in practical filmmaking, which was the tulips. I knew we had to stand in front of that room and say, we're going to grow them and get them used to what would be the process. And, I do believe that you feel the nature and the skies and the weather. I believe so strongly in being out there doing it. You get something that you can't plan. And so, I mean, the tulips had a theme. It's all the colors of the rainbow. These are all tied in to story and all. So you kind of have to stand up, and it's very difficult because I remember that room. I still, to this day.
I wish I was a fly on the wall.
I was getting
pitching the tulips
and battered, and like you're crazy. You can't do that. And but you sort of stand there and you sort of hold fast. And then I stopped, and like time slowed, and I looked around the room, and because I think if you sort of a creative person, time does stand still, and you're in your mind. And I remember thinking, none of you have to, I didn't say this, none of you have to do anything. You just have to show up. I'm going to have to do it. And it's a lot harder. And I could do it CGI. It'd be easy, then it's his problem.
But we had John Chu, who was so amazing. He backed us all the way. And he wanted us to feel real. And he always said he wanted me to feel it and actually touch it. And, and with his help, we actually got there.
The one thing that's you share with all of the other panels is the deep commitment to building your backstories. And that's, I think, one of our key jobs, because no one's ever asking those questions. We're the first ones to really figure out, all right, I see what it says on the page, but how did it come to be, and what is the origins of that? And in your case, you're taking the bomb stories and the mythology and the culture and updating it to meet the needs of this unique story, which is not the Wizard of Oz story. It's its own version of that, based on a lovely book. So what was your process of building your backstories?
I think you kind of fall into it, and you can't solve it all. So you tiptoe around and you find puzzle pieces, and it's like someone throwing everything in the air, and you have to sort of see a pattern, and you find a pattern and aspiration, and then you slowly put them together and see how they all fit. And I think that's the best bit, really, isn't it? And it's like trying to find your backstories. I mean, I always had this sort of marker of like, the Grimmery is the time of the land, and the Shiz is the time of harmony, and then Emerald City was the time of the wizards. So we had these sort of the ancient to the modern. But they don't play. They're just for you, and just so we can find a path.
For like me, the girls' dorm was a complete challenge. We had 22 separate dresses of that set and a backstory for each of the girls, and that was an amazing thing to do.
It felt like we were walking into a Fortuny lab, their room, the Elphaba and Glinda's.
Well, Nathan gave me a set that was round and curved and had curved walls.
Where do you put the bed?
And there's a corridor outside, and that's curved and it's round. So not a single straight piece of furniture.
Good luck, bye.
That's how you all do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, what he did in that room with the mechanical the clothes flying out, the mirrors coming up. Special effects were obviously underneath the stage, cueing all this, and it was all done and timed to a dance. It was, and then your dresses were. It was a tiny set, but it held a huge song number.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, most challenging, there's just so many aspects of that. I mean, Lee, I just remember the last time we talked to you, you had done 1917, which has a lot in common with Wicked. It's like, that's a different side of your soul that you have to find to approach these rooms.
I can do mud and color.
But back to timing and mechanicals and choreography, the Shiz Library with that rotating bookcases. Oh, yeah, that's easy. We've done that all the time. Where do you begin? And did they ask you to leave the room when you first suggested it?
No, it was with John. I was John Chu, our director. I was like, I love moving things, mechanical stuff, and I'd been watching Jamiroquai with the floor kind of, and it was like the fact that practically the couches come by you, and obviously there's Royal Wedding, and we have the themes of defying gravity, so like, and we have an O and we have a ladder that can make a Z. So there's lots of themes. I remember telling John, what if we rotated these bookshelves, and that was the library. And we hadn't even designed the library. It's like, if we can make these bookshelves rotate, and we're lucky to have Paul Corbel, special effects, who we've worked with on films like Dunkirk with flying miniatures and all the way back to Batman. So I know like these guys can engineer it and make it safe, which is obviously one of the key hurdles to get over, because production are likely to shut you down on that issue alone. And then it was really Chris, our choreographer, and John Chu was like, do you think you can do a dance in here? And they were excited. And then it was dancing through life. It was introduction to Fierro. He has to be the coolest guy in school. We need to give him the best thing to do. So that's...
Yeah, and then we realized that, as the shelves moved, the dancers were going to land on the books. So we made all the books to the same density as a dance floor, all 10,000 of them, so they could perform through the tunnel.
That's insane.
But when you were on set that day, and they're all parkour dancers, when you see them flip and somersault out of the wheels, it was amazing. The great thing about musicals is you want to hang out on set.
Yeah.
For a change.
I did try it myself. I wasn't very good at it.
That's awesome. I have to say that when you finally do arrive you did so many. Munchkin Land was so detailed with all the background, all the things the activities that everyone was doing. But all of the stuff at Oz was just amazing. You had carousels and vendors, and the colors were all so incredible, and it just really was it truly was magical.
That set became kind of, it was almost like an amusement in the end, wasn't it? It was like, and it took on its own life. You kind of just can let things go actually sometimes, and that set just kept on going and going, and it went on and on and on.
More and more.
And you were shooting 2 movies at once.
Yeah, that was, I wouldn't...
That little thing.
Yeah, but all the HODs and John Chu and Mark Platt, the greatest producer ever, when you get everyone together and we all became a family, it was okay. And 128-day shoot is, I know from the past, it's not good. It's just not good. 70, 80 is pushing it. And so, but actually it was all wonderful. Of course there were dark days when things didn't work.
So the call sheet question.
The call sheet.
I'm going to do the happy version of that. For me, when Cynthia and Ari didn't know that we had a puppeteered head in that set, and so the curtains, and I loved those curtains because it was drapery department. The wind would blow them, and then the head would come through, and it'd be like the eye, and it was all mechanical. And so I remember when the first take happened, and this sort of wind blew, and it was like Indiana Jones, So, and the head came through, and it was like, they don't say I am Oz, but in my mind it was always I am Oz, and they were like, whoa, and I think that getting that reaction from them was the best moment. You can say the worst moment.
Well, actually, I would say that every call sheet was good. We had the best time on this film. John and Mark, and it was just incredible. It's the best thing I've ever done.
That's fantastic.
Well, we'll go out on that happy thought. So now we get to get off book, and we're just going to get and do the live thing and talk to everyone. So we're going to invite everyone back up. You guys can take the last two chairs. Go to your room. And we have a mic set up. We have a mic set up over here. So for all those adventuresome, oh, I'm sorry, the mic is right here now. Very good. So for those that have questions, this is an amazing opportunity.
You're the third set.
Yeah, that was my screw up. No, I'm good.
I'm good, thank you.
We have a lonely mic down front here.
No, the same.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. No, we keep our two mics. Yeah. We're still two.
I know there's nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
Thank
It's okay. I'm good. Thanks. Okay.
All right.
I don't have them. Are we going to share them?
I think we're sharing.
Yeah. This is where we have to share mics.
Patty.
So each team, to use a poor expression, has to share their mic with their other teammate. So very good. And introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Amelia Steely. I'm an ADG member, and I'm super interested in sustainability. And with all of these incredible sets and all of your work, I was wondering if any of you had any creative solutions for making your sets more sustainable. Anything for sourcing things or thinking about where the sets end up or the elements end up after you wrap.
That kind of is a question to the floor, but Craig, we'll start with you guys because you did everything from scratch. What happened to your wonderful village? Yeah.
For me? I'm sorry. I wish I could say that everything was kept and used over and over again, but most of it was not. It's something that we try to figure out to do our best and to use materials that are sustainable and brought in, but most of it actually was not turned. And we sold a couple of the sets, which is what we were hoping to do for the back lot, but turns out that they decided not to do that. Sorry, don't have a better.
Does anybody else want to? I think, yeah.
Yeah, the nice thing about Set Deck is, for the most part, we recycle most stuff we do. If it sits in a storage till it gets released, after it comes out, it will either go to auction, it will either go to a good home and get sold. But for the most part, there are a lot of initiatives now with the studios to make sure that these products go and get recycled and go out there. The unfortunate part is that if it's a hero prop or something like that, for the most part, those pieces will get destroyed because you don't want them in another film. But I will say, working in Toronto, there is a huge initiative right now to recycle and reuse.
Judy, did you have a? Oh, okay.
I can talk to it as well. I think that we at least for my experience, and probably Shane would agree, that we're in Toronto, we have a lot of great, like Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji. We buy a lot of things that are already, they're secondhand and they're used, and not only to help our budget, but you have these incredible unique pieces. And we don't have the prop houses that they have in Los Angeles. So in Los Angeles, I mean, it's amazing because you're using things that run over and over again. But I think that we're all trying to be conscious about sustainability. It's just, it's tough sometimes in the business. But I think as the set decorators, up a little bit of an up on that one.
I think set decorators are the original recyclers because
I remember
the prop houses, you know, I have little, you know, furniture friends that I go and visit because we've used them so many times. You know, I think everybody here tries to do that as much as possible.
But I think there is room for a lot more sustainability and recycling in the film business in general, and as much as everyone can encourage that, it's a good thing, because there is a lot of waste, and I feel terrible about it personally. But what, you know, one individual can only do so much. And what do we do? It's a bad thing, you know. There's a lot of waste. I remember when I was a PA, we would give the leftover food from craft service to homeless people, and then that became outlawed in New York. Like, that's great, you know, because, so it's, yeah, it's a bad thing.
Patrice, did you have a thought?
Well, in Budapest, they use a lot of wood for the structures, and I know that it's recycled, like it's reused as much as it can.
So expensive.
The next show, the structures of the sets. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every piece of wood we used in Budapest was used again.
Yeah.
And I feel like there wasn't a lot of waste in Budapest.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Everything that's wood, it's like,
yeah.
And they actually resell it to you.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the tulips are still blooming, right?
Sorry?
The wicked
Okay,
tulips
so
are blooming.
the great thing about decks now is they're scaffold, they're not wood, so that's a start. Plaster molds, that's tricky because you've got silicon, but the plaster you can turn around. There's still, the paint causes a problem, the paint stuff you use, so there's loads of issues. If you have a metal shop, you can recycle that. So you can get to about 50%, but there's a problem. You have to get the studio behind you to take all the nails out of the wood. There's no scene docks. If you have old school Hollywood scene docks, you could then take the flats apart and stack them, like when I started. And that was really useful because if you got like, reshoots and stuff, you stack them, but no one will pay for the land to do that. So there's a sort of ongoing problem, but I will say that I think scaffolding is a major plus through our departments through grips. I think the wood and nail thing is just about labor and whether people will pay for that. So I think, yeah, we could do a lot better, but we also need the support of our studios, and that needs to be done.
Susie, it'd be good to have an academy initiative about sustainability. That's an area that I think is under supported.
Susie, you had a thought?
Well, to end on a bit of a positive note, the Sistine Chapel is stored at Cinecittà because those sort of big stages that are created are going to be used again. So I think there's probably, like a 10 Downing Street in London somewhere that's flat packed in a warehouse, and Cinecittà have kept the Sistine Chapel. Yeah.
Well, that's a place I'd want to shoot it, so. Okay, thank you. Next question. Introduce yourself too, please.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Brandenburg. I'm a set decorator. Welcome. Congratulations to everybody. I'm going to direct this to the set decorators because I'm a set decorator. There was so much originality in the builds and the designs that you did for some of the furnishing pieces, the set deck items. I wanted to know if each of you would mind telling me what your favorite is, and I can tell Shane which one was my favorite. There were so many, but that wonderful desk. If I think it's sort of Bugatti-ish, and I just wanted, oh, sorry. Well, we all borrow, that's just part of it, but there was also a complete redesign. Could you tell us about how you came up with, because I think that was your idea, I'm just a guess. Mostly because Patrice said it was your idea at dinner the other, or on a tape I heard.
What dinner?
Oh, not the dinner. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I got mixed up. It was It was a, a video that I saw. Tell us about that, and then I'll ask the other decorators to think about their favorite piece, if you don't mind.
You know, that grouping of furniture was it really was inspired from Bugatti, mostly because we were shooting at the Briand Cemetery, which Scarpa built. So we wanted to have that feeling. And, you know, that furniture was all custom built. And it was leather that really was inlaid, and copper and wood. And the craftsmen in Budapest did a great job at pulling that together. But when I got into that set, it just absolutely was perfection. It really was a beautiful set. But I appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you.
Any other favorites?
Well, I could, we actually sourced and bought and made a whole, nearly every single piece actually. But my favorite thing in the whole world is actually a tree stump, and it's from a rental company. And I've used it on every single film, every single one. And I just love it to bits. Is that you don't see it in film one, it's actually in film two. And yeah, I think I've used it 24 times.
I love it. My favorite pieces, so I, of course, loved a lot Harding House. There were a lot of great stuff, and there were a few rarities that I loved. I don't know if you noticed them, or there were not all of them were featured. But there was kind of pictures made from hair. It was a hair work from that period that I found just randomly in a bazaar. So this was my favorite piece, which was kind of very spooky. Nobody really wanted to touch it, because with this hair work, it's kind of, we don't, in this period it was quite common, but today nobody really wants it. So this piece was quite interesting. So,
Any more?
For me, the favorite piece is when they sew the ballot cards together. There's a needle and thread, and there's a whole hook, and that then puts into the stove. And that was something that I hadn't thought about, but it's, like for real. They don't want people cheating with the ballot cards and the votes. And so they take this red thread, and it's the thread that we have all through the film, and that was my favorite piece.
I think my favorite piece is the chair that was revealed in the library. And it was a piece that originally there was going to be some set designers or local architect designing, which kind of fell through, and Judy designed it. And we had to find the pieces, and we had very little time, but we used the trickery of filming where we couldn't find a really good thick leather to do the strapping in the color that Judy wanted. So we had it very thin, and I think that if someone had laid on it for a really long time. Yeah, and but we were worried that eventually it would start to sag and you'd see it, but it ended up beautiful. And there were very talented artisans there. But that piece, luckily, we have my assistant decorator, I guess, was starting a prop house, so she kept those pieces. So you would be able to find them again if anyone was that interested.
We all wanted them, but
yeah. We couldn't afford to ship them, unfortunately.
Next question. Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Valeria Vera. I just graduated from USC, and I've been doing freelance production design ever since. But I just wanted to say congratulations to all of you on your nominations. Really inspirational work. My question's kind of two-part, I guess, related to budget. I know, fun topic. I guess I'm curious as to how, with films, as we were talking about before, since it's becoming more of a global industry and we're kind of traveling to build these spaces in new territories, I guess, that we haven't been to personally within vacations or traveling, I guess. How do you navigate building and working in these new areas and handling budget and anticipating any unexpected costs? And I guess just kind of planning for that in pre-production, and as you guys were saying earlier with The Brutalist, like kind of planning before and shipping things from here to your filming location. I guess, how does that work in pre-production for you guys?
Well, I'll start since you mentioned the name of my movie. But, we went to Hungary because of the budget. Our movie was a $10 million movie, $6 million for production, $10 million all in. So by far the lowest budget movie here, I think it's safe to say, right? And we shot in Hungary because we couldn't afford to shoot anywhere else. And that's the reason a lot of productions go to places like Hungary. The dollar goes a lot further, and for various reasons. And it was both hard and easy to sort of deal with the budget. Easy in the sense that I had no idea what things cost in Budapest, in Hungary. Everything was done in Florence. Labor was cheap, materials were expensive. It's the opposite of how it is here. And I had to really rely on my Hungarian art directors to generate a budget. I couldn't even look at it because it was meaningless to me in Florence. So it was kind of a big burden taken off of me. At the same time, I knew I didn't have a lot of money, so I did have to very carefully designate which sets were gonna get the money. And for the one thing that I did know how much it cost was the furniture, because we had to buy that in dollars. And it was a small sum on a bigger budget movie, a very large sum for our movie, because the furniture cost like $1,000, but the shipping was, when we got a quote for the shipping in Hungary, it was $35,000 to ship it, and that was too much money. That was a big chunk. But Patty got a quote in Canada, and it was $5,000, and that seemed affordable. So the whole thing was $6,000, and we shipped it for that. Now, I have to say, on a normal movie, I work on relatively low-budget movies by Hollywood standards, but they're bigger, a lot bigger than 10 million. And on those movies, this would not have been a problem. But on our movie, that was still like a little chunk of our budget, but it was worth it because we all wanted the furniture store to look like it looked. And we shipped a lot of other American stuff that we couldn't find in Hungary. All to say that you had to think very carefully about and I had a good amount of prep for such a small movie, so I had time to think about what we really needed and what we couldn't find in Hungary. But it took some careful planning, and I did go home to New York in the middle of prep, so I was able to get stuff that we realized we didn't have. So you have to make do. So I mean, we couldn't afford to have things shipped, but if we could have afforded it, we would have done that. So there's other ways that you can fill in the gaps. But we managed to make it work. And I had one more thing to say, but I'm sure everyone else wants to say something too. So I could go on forever about the budget.
Budgets are everyone's favorite subject, so.
Yeah, right?
You can be shy if you wish.
I will say one thing, one more thing. I found out way too late that wood was very expensive in Hungary because of the war in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine. And the war that Ukraine did not start. And no one had told me this. So it created a lot of budget problems for us because we needed some wood for that library, like nice wood and not, what's it called? I block it out. Plywood? No, the stuff that's particle board, yeah. I can't ever remember the curse of particle board, yeah. So you didn't ask the question, what was your worst moment on the movie? But that was my worst moment. But yeah, so I don't know why I said that, but yeah. So there's always these bad surprises. That was mine.
I want to move on to another question, but does anyone else have a thought on budget?
Well, I could add, it's about casting the right crew, because obviously when you travel abroad, you cannot necessarily bring everybody that you want. And also listening to their way of making things, because we come from different countries, but there's always different ways to making something. And listening to their perspective on things and how they would build it, and have that open discussion, and not come into a different country you're going to do it this way, and this is like, you need to have an open mind about, how their way of working, so.
Any last thoughts?
I'll just talk from a giant budget standpoint. The problem with giant budgets, it takes a lot of people to manage it, and one mistake can send you desperately in a bad place, and you can lose everything in a week. So you have to have crew around you that understands it, understands how to manage that, because you'll need a lot of management, and that costs money as well. So it's like a school. It's like the administration gets bigger. With the bigger the school is, it becomes its own problem. So you cast your crew, and over the years traveling around the world, we've sort of collected people from different countries, from Estonia, from Iceland, from India. So who are just kind of good at going to places. Like if you have to go to a distant place and do something hardy, if you've got to be on Dunkirk beaches, you send the Icelandic people, so it's, so then so it's really about, as you said, about looking at your crew and we have a person called Jenny Lee who goes around, and she's an art director who is specifically there, like a forensic accountant, to make sure we don't have any holes, because your budget is your budget. You cannot go a penny over. So you have to sit in that room and you have to start losing things. And that will happen to you. You will have to give up stuff because you've spent too much on one set. You're going to have to recycle parts from another set and use the flattage, and you might not want to do it, but you have to sort of keep an open mind.
Thanks. Next
Thank you so
question.
much.
Thank you all for being here. My name's Michael. I'm an art PA. And my question to you is, with all the changes that have happened recently or that are ongoing, what's been a new challenge or responsibility, maybe on your most recent production, that required some sort of logistical solution, and you can maybe point to a very tangible example of just like a new sort of challenge with recent changes?
The times always give us new challenges that we hadn't considered before, but being flexible is certainly part of our.
Yeah, and I think in the UK it's the mental health attitude in the film industry, and there's a big push to look after crews. We do long hours in strange locations, and actually on the production I'm working at the moment, we have a mental health advisor that just comes and checks in on everybody, because it's can be quite a lonely job.
I think that tariffs may end up becoming an issue.
What?
Tariffs.
Tariffs, oh yeah.
If those come to pass, I think that's going to become somewhat of an issue.
That's just rumored tariffs. It's not really happening. Yeah. Next question.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Binkley. I've worked on almost 100 TV shows and movies, but as a set PA. So I was in the military for 10 years, did years in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so I just run around on sets for 15 years the same. I've met several of you on some of the guild events, because I'm a member of a couple other guilds. So my question was, I'm also very much on the producer track, and so when you go and you meet with producers, whether you get when you get brought on, when ideally would you like to hear, where things are? Obviously the conversation with the producer and the director could be day one all the way to the very end. But when do you like to be brought into the conversations the most in your perfect world? Thank you.
Yeah. Is there ever too early?
Yeah, the earlier the better, because we never have enough time. We're like goldfish as well. We'll use as much time as we're given, but they'll save money if they bring us on earlier, because sometimes you're really pushed to come up with those initial designs. But by then the boundaries have come in, which, as I spoke about earlier, is a good thing as well, to have your time boundary and your budget. But if we could just have a little bit more, would be really, so earlier the better.
Any other thoughts down there about when's the best time for you to come on board?
I don't think anybody's going to argue with earlier.
No.
Early as possible, and
Yeah.
It's not the timing that matters, it's what it's what the producer's really thinking and how they budgeted and what they're thinking about the budget. It could be early, but if the producers decided to budget it in a way that makes no sense, doesn't really matter when you're brought in. So it's, there's,
in the end, I believe
a lot of factors.
In the end, I think I strongly believe that bringing the designer early on is a very good economic decision for the producers, because early on we can face the challenges, find solutions, talk to the director, talk to the producer, exactly, and so they're not surprised. We're always the first department to go at bat, and we're always the first one hit with the budgets, and being as early as possible, I think, is wise for any production, small or big.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say that I find that when we're early, it's always the art department that gets hammered. And once another department comes on, I'm like, thank God, because now they're going to get it,
you're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
That's true.
But I'm sure I can say that everyone's annoyed when they've hired the location manager before they've hired you.
Yeah.
It's common, but it's weird.
Yeah, it is common.
Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Alejandro Oken. I'm a film student at USC. I'm also Mimi Gramatke student assistant as well. And I first want to thank you guys so much for telling the stories of perseverance, specifically the furniture store story in Brutalist. That really inspired me to kind of keep going no matter what struggles are faced towards me. But I specifically want to direct this question towards Patrice and Shane. I've been inspired by Dune's story ever since David Lynch's interpretation of Dune. And I kind of wanted to ask what the pre-production design work was like for that film compared to the other works you've done, kind of in regards to the complexity and the challenging nature of that pre-production design work.
Well, first of all, I'm extremely privileged to work with Denis Villeneuve, and we have a very short hand together. And he supports the idea of having the design, like, bring me on very early. So I do have my time to think. I do have my time with my concept artists, and I love to take a lot of time. I'm not a fast. I need my, and so the process is that by the time we start pre-production, I've collected a visual Bible. All these images are approved by Denis, and this guides everybody, every other department, the movie, and this is from now on until the movie, it finishes the post-production. This is what we're doing, and we're not stepping aside. We're really going straight forward. And that, when pre-production opens, these illustrations, I work with 3D modeling. So these illustrations come from, or basically screen grabs or renders from the 3D models. So those models are given to VFX. They're given to the director of photography. So with his team, he can start actually figuring out how he's going to light the sets. They're given to previs, obviously, storyboard artists. So, and that's how we work at it. So we just once it's approved, and Denis is amazing because he never changes his mind. Once he commits, and we move forward.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Jose Daniel. I graduated from the production design program in AFI last year. What is the best advice you would give to someone who is just starting in the industry, in the art department, in the current complicated climate of things?
Yeah, that's anyone.
For everyone.
That's a tennis ball up in the air. Who wants to hit it back?
Persevere. Keep trying. Never stop sending your CV because it will drop on someone's desk at the right time, at the right moment. And also, I think one thing that everybody should do is be a standby art director. I don't know if you have that term in the US, but it's the on-set dresser, just to work. Then you know what the effort behind has come to the day of the shoot. So you know sort of like the effort that's gone in and what works on camera and what doesn't and what's unnecessary. I think it's a really useful bit of knowledge to have.
Yeah, I'd say, like, work as a art department assistant, work as in every department if you can, before you try to start designing, because that knowledge will be so useful to you. And if you start designing too early, you won't get as far as if you wait and learn and then design with that knowledge behind you. And I really believe that. And it's good to have some experience before you start designing. And it will come, but you'll be a better designer.
And understand the collaboration and how departments are interdependent, I think.
I learned so much from working as a set dresser. I mean, that's where I learned the most, and just from observing, watching what everyone did. And I worked on big movies as a set dresser, and I watched how and in New York, the set dressers do a lot, and a lot of construction, and I still remember that stuff. And it can be a great experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not fun.
Hi, my name is Cal Lokes, and I'm a set decorator. And thank you, everybody, for coming. This question is really addressed to Craig and Beatrice, because I think that you had a lot of considerations in terms of practical lighting on your sets. And because set decoration and the art department is so involved in practical lighting in all of our sets these days, and it's very different, I wanted you to sort of reflect on some of the challenges you had with the lighting and some of your solutions. Thanks.
Okay. So as we have been very precise in 1838, so it was the period when the kerosene lighting was not still on, but there were a lot of other oil lightings. So it was quite difficult because actually we couldn't really find lightings which is practical, because during some of the lighting wanted to have the real one, to use the real flame. But luckily we found a private collector of period lighting in Germany, and he was so kind to come to Prague and bring some of the lightings to show us how it works. And the thing is that, this kind of old lightings, even if we can light it, the thing is that we can light it like for 1-2 hours, but not more. It means that we would have to make the wick to fabricate it. Everything was kind of special. So at the end, we of course rented some of the original one. But we made a lot of replicas to be a little bit adapted what Charin asked, so it could be electrified. So some of the lighting was the real one, the period one. We even managed to buy some old lamps, but it was extremely expensive actually. So it wasn't so possible for all of the lighting. So we managed to buy some of them. We manufactured a lot of them, and some of them were the originals from the collector, and some of them were from the Probauses. So, yeah.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, the great thing was because we found this great collector, we had examples that we could copy. So that's what we did. We copied them either to be electrified, or a lot of them were oil, various versions. And then, of course, fireplaces, and I mean, that was always a question. How are we going to light the set? How are we going to light the set? Well, trying to figure out what they would require. That's it.
We have time for like 2 more questions, so.
Hey, my name's Gina. I have been a graphic designer in the Art Directors Guild for almost 10 years now. I have kind of made it my personal mission to really celebrate the graphic design contribution in the art department. So I'd love to ask you guys kind of open floor. Your films are all so diverse, just in terms of the subject matter, the style, time period, and the scale of these films is really enormous. But I'd love to hear what your approach was to collaborating with the graphic designers on your team and integrating that skill set into your work.
Who wants to take
Well, my wife is the graphic designer. Well, she's now a concept designer. But and we work together always, and she started as a graphic designer. And so it's integrated. We share an office. She's now into concept design. But the problem with graphics we found is everyone, the people in charge, producers, not so much the director, have such a preconceived of graphics, and they think they know what's good, and really they just know what's obvious. And I'm sorry to say that if any of you are producers. And they're afraid to do something new, and you can see it in the posters alone, the film posters. So graphics should be, obviously there's brilliant people like Wes Anderson who are going for it, but graphics should be varied and interesting, and it's one of the great disappointments in an art department to get graphics through that are any good and original.
Any other feelings about graphics down the road? I mean, the one thing that's amazing because of the technologies is the graphic artist is not just making labels for the whiskey bottle. I mean, they're doing CNC artwork, and they're creating fabrics and textiles and wall coverings and cutouts, and God knows whatever they can do with the tools that they have now. It's really quite an important, and again, producers don't get it, but it's an important collaborator in the art department now. Those tools are phenomenal.
And I just worked on a film, and it takes place in 500 AD, and we had 3 graphics designers. So you wouldn't think that we would need that on that sort of period, but it was absolutely necessary, and they were brilliant.
She also did the Flintstones, so she knows.
The stone carving was quite involved.
On Conclave, the only reason that we managed to build the Casa Santa Marta was because the graphics department said they could create that marble effect. Like, I couldn't have done it any other way. We didn't have the time for the painters. The painters painted the floor in a marble effect, but the graphics team saved so much money and time, and were amazing to create those walls, from prints,
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Manson, art director, and this is a personal question. In an increasingly fast-paced, pessimistic, and cynical world, what do you do personally to keep your sense of wonder and awe as you move along in life?
That's a great question.
Amazing question.
How do you renew yourselves after these adventures?
I would say just working with great people and being, Nathan, it's like, there you go, look at that.
You're not bad yourself. It's difficult. We all experience, because of the way the industry is, we experience a lot more time off, and I know that sounds odd for us lot, but there's big swaths of time, and you have to keep your brain going. If you can't keep your brain moving, you can find lots of things to do, but as a designer, you have to get engaged in some way. So it's becoming very difficult. But go outside, wander around. That's how I do it. Just start walking, see where the day goes, end up in a pub. That's pretty good.
That could happen today. Any?
I was just going to say alcohol. Yeah, the same time.
Yeah. Spirits. We'll call them spirits. One last question.
Can I answer that one, though? The wonder and
Yes,
awe
please,
question?
Judy.
Just that it's, on every movie I've done, pretty much, there's always a few moments when you do a set, and there's hard moments when it's like halfway finished. It's always awful. But then when it's done and you're happy with it, that's this great moment. That's the wonder and awe moment, when you're really happy. And then if the director walks in and is really happy, that's even better. So it's always every movie gives you a few of those, I think, and those are really great moments. So you that's what the work is about, is feeling like you've achieved this thing that contributes to this movie that you're happy with. I try to work on movies that I would want to watch. So those are the moments that keep you going, and that's what's great about the work, is that it is the work that gives you those moments. It's for me, anyway, and hopefully for most people that do it.
We're going to get thrown out of here in about a minute, so.
Really quick, I'm Kimberly Buckley, and I'm a costumer, and I'm curious all the time, so you guys have wonderful designs that we support each other. Do you have really at least one good story of where you had to work with costumes as a team?
Is anyone here married to a costume designer? But I'm only here. They are the
Paul Tazwell, who was he was amazing. He made even though it was a dress, it was a prop in Popular. So he made us 30 gowns just for that one scene, and he was amazing to work with.
There you go. Something to recycle. Well,
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough. I would like you, before we go into our final plus, just a note of the wise. There's another panel coming in here at 1 o'clock, so we have to vacate the theater as quickly as possible. If you want to mob them up in the outer courtyard, please. Let them get out of the building. And with that, I just want you to join us in thanking.
Have fun tomorrow, everyone.